Daredevil, we built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
I felt Fiska's pain.
Dude, that was one of the most comedic moments I've ever had in television.
Non-spoiler review. It's good. Last episode was better, but it's good.
It's really heavy style.
Yeah.
Like, I felt the weight of these words, and like one particular discussion gave me a lot of thought, which doesn't really happen with television.
Yeah.
And I'd like to congratulate Marvel for having the balls to talk about something for once like that.
That's fair. That's where the non-spoiler review ends, because there's not really much to discuss in this episode. Non-spoiler.
I think from now on we're gonna be doing a lot less non-spoiler review.
Yeah. You want to do the synopsis?
Oh shoot! I should have had that pulled up.
Yeah. I need a minute to rest my voice and stop feeling like I'm gonna upchuck right here on the camera, because that's a wonderful feeling.
So, for synopsis. All right, this is. Let me see. Nope.
Did you pull it up?
No, I got one. Okay, this is coming from The Ringer. So, the title of episode 4 is Sic Semper Systema, which appears to play on the famous Latin phrase Sic Semper Tyrannis, which translates to thus always to tyrants. It signifies that tyrannical leaders will always be overthrown. By replacing tyrants with system or the system, Born Again calls for the system to be torn down instead. Or, I saw somebody on Twitter who is like a Latin linguist, who said it would, if they were going for thus always to the system, it would more accurately translate to the Sic Semper Systemati, but because it's Sic Semper Systema, it would more directly translate to this is always the system. Just something more deeper to think about as we go further into this. So, fourth installment is directly showing how the system is failing in New York City and why changes need to be made to fix or dismantle it altogether. In the wake of Hector Ayala's murder at the end of last week's episode, Murdock's plotline highlights the failures of the criminal justice system. At the beginning of episode 4, Matt takes a trip to the morgue to learn more about Ayala's death. While he's speaking with the coroner, they're interrupted by Hector's niece, Angela, who pulls Matt aside and calls for justice for her beloved uncle. She asserts that police killed Hector after he walked free at the end of his trial and laments the futility of believing that anyone will be held accountable for their crime. Murdock responds with all the right things, saying that she has to believe someone will discover who's responsible for Hector's death, yet it's clear that he doesn't believe his own words, at least not unless that someone is him. So, before we go further, we're going to touch into that cameo theory a little bit more.
Okay, go for it.
So we all know, according to the rumor and the leak, that episode 5 is said to directly name a character, a known hero in the MCU. Correct?
Okay.
That's what you said, right?
I'm hearing back and forth of either it's going to be directly named or we're actually going to have a direct MCU character there.
Okay. I think they're going to be named, and then they'll show up in episode 8. And I say that because we know from both set leaks and an official announcement by the actor that Kamala Khan's father is set to appear in the show.
Kamala Khan.
Ms. Marvel.
Thank you. I was trying to remember who.
So that leads me to believe that Kamala herself is going to be in the final episode, and that further sets up Young Avengers because Angela Ayala has taken up the mantle of White Tiger before. So she could also appear on that lineup of Young Avengers. That's my current theory after this week.
I mean, I see it. I don't like it.
It doesn't make me as happy as a certain other hero that, but
it doesn't make me happy as like majority of the heroes they can pull on.
But it does set up Young Avengers, and I do like some Young Avengers. So
yeah, but I don't think we have a good group for the Young Avengers right now.
We're working on it. Actually, we have a majority of Young Avengers other than like Iron Lad.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Before investigating the White Tiger's murder, Murdock deals with a new client named Leroy Bradford, who got caught stealing a box of caramel corn from a bodega. Bradford hopes to get probation, an unrealistic goal given his criminal record, but the best Murdock can get him is a reduced sentence, shrinking his 30 days of jail time to 10. Murdock tries to appease his frustrated client, calling anything below a 30-day sentence for someone with his rap sheet a gift, saying that 10 days is a miracle, but Bradford doesn't buy it. As Bradford explains, he spent his entire life trapped in a system that focuses more on punishment than on helping him improve his circumstances. For Bradford to experience even a small taste of happiness, he has few alternatives to breaking the law. So why'd I get the caramel corn? I like that stuff, and it tastes good, he says. And for that, they're willing to spend 5 times more to lock me up than they are willing to spend to feed me. And you come in here and tell me that's a gift. Those are direct quotes. Well,
yes.
Almost direct. I said a different word other than stuff. Well, he says a different word other than stuff. So, referring back to the non-spoiler section, that quote was a lot to think about. Like, even like today, I had moments just thinking about that kind of stuff. And I'm surprised Marvel would say stuff like that, because usually they dance around some social issues like that. Like, specifically in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they talk a lot about borders with the Flag Smashers, but they don't ever actually say anything meaningful where they're directly saying stuff here.
That entire, like, all honesty, majority of this episode for me was a 3. Like, there.
Wow. Okay.
That entire section, I was just like, okay, like, I get why you like it. It felt a little too pushy, trying to do that kind of talk. Which, again, you're right. It is very unusual for Marvel to go into anything a little bit more social conflict, but this felt more like we should be social conflict, and we're gonna force it down your throat of a serious talk. It felt very, wherever Marvel has kind of gotten close to it and been a little bit more friendly about it, this one was just like, we're not going to ease into it. We're just going to dive straight into the conflict and issue.
Okay. Let me bring up a counterpoint.
Go for it.
That's the way that Matt feels in that situation as well.
Well, no, yeah, and that again, I don't know. I just didn't like the writing in that section personally, and frankly enough, I actually got bored in for the first good chunk of this episode. I was bored. Like, it was fine, and that is saying a lot for me for this show so far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even a lot of the straightforward. Okay, so we haven't gotten there in the synapses yet. We do go ahead and get the confrontation with Frank Castle in this episode. Up until that conflict, this episode really wasn't doing it for me. I was at a 3.
I'll touch more into that later as well.
Yeah, I was very just like, okay, we had a super good high last week. We had a good start. You know, a show can't be on a full sprint pace the whole time, so it was passable. It was fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like the little bit of time we get, with him playing Matt Murdock, the lawyer. I was like, cool. These are cool scenes for you, but these aren't really like good look of Matt Murdock lawyer scenes either. Like, this is just kind of this feels like there are key points that they had to talk into, like Frank Castle and such. But it feels like a lot of this episode was just kind of like, we could do a little bit of a filler at this point before we get into what is supposed to be some of the bigger stuff next week.
I think I see that vision. Yeah, I can see that.
That also may be why that whole conversation just kind of like passed me. Was I just kind of I was there watching, but I was more like, okay, none of this is really like sticking right now. I also watched this right before we went live, and that might have something to do with it too, because I don't feel good. So I'll rewatch it before next week.
See if we issue a retraction on that 3.
Or
is that not your final score? That's not your final score? Okay.
No, we'll come back to my final score. That was my score up until that point. That's so the way I watch if I'm reviewing a show, if I can, is I will start to run numbers in my head while I'm watching it. And when I'm pretty solid, I'll write it down somewhere. So I'd already put it in the computer and, I was a 3. And then something else happens and my score changed. So I changed my score because, again, the whole episode is what we're reviewing. But frankly enough, especially if I'm starting to tune out in an episode, if I get to the end of the episode, I don't remember what I was feeling at the beginning of part of the episode. So it's harder for me to judge it.
Yeah.
So that's where that logic comes from. Proceed.
All right. When Murdock later visits the crime scene where Ayala was murdered, he quickly finds the bullet casing the police couldn't, and he feels the Punisher logo emboldenized, laser etched into it. Murdock uses the discovery as an excuse to pay a visit to an old friend, Frank Castle. In what is one of the highlights of the season so far, Murdock and John Bernthal's Castle reunite on screen for the first time since Castle appeared in the 2nd season of Daredevil. Castle is living in a hideout deep in the basement of a building with a wide variety of guns and crowded evidence boards adorning the walls. When Murdock presents his former client with the bullet casing, it's immediately evident that they both know it doesn't belong to Castle. Although Born Again had previously teased some sort of connection among multiple corrupt NYPD officers, including Officer Powell in episode 2 and a cop observing Ayala's trial in episode 3 by showing their Punisher tattoos, this is the first time that the series has openly acknowledged the existence of this faction of Punisher wannabes. Murdock had apparently figured it all out already, down to the identity of Ayala's killer, who he believes is a rogue cop who chose to take justice, or at least his idea of it, into his own hands, just as Angela had thought, while Matt may have visited Castle under the guise of following up on the bullet casing, Frank quickly picks up on his ulterior motive. Quote, "I don't think you came here for my help," Frank tells Murdock. "See, I think you want my permission. You want to get your hands on somebody, huh? Want to hurt him. Maybe you're a little bit scared. A little scared about what that means." Frank pushes Matt further and further, even citing Nelson and the fact that Murdock failed to save him as the real reason he stopped by. That guilt, that shame, that's my home, Red. Castle continues, addressing Murdock by Castle's pet name for his alter ego. "And I can't see it on you. I can see it on you, is what he says. I can smell it on you. It's all over you. Frank draws the pain and the rage out of Matt, if only for a moment, and Matt strikes Frank before apologizing for the outburst. Matt begins to break down as he tries to convince Frank and himself that the system worked this time, since Bullseye is serving life in prison for what he did to Foggy. But Frank sticks to his guns as he always has, maintaining that the system is broken as long as someone else, like Bullseye, gets to live while Foggy doesn't. And that line is heavy. They don't quote it here, but oh my God. They're going back and forth at each other, screaming. And he brings up, like, oh, he gets to breathe the same air as you because he's still alive. And Matt screams, he got life. He's going to be locked up forever.
Mm-hmm.
And Castle responds, but did Foggy get life? And there's silence for a good solid 5 seconds, and it's a gut punch. And it's hard.
This is the set of scenes that this episode had to get to. And this set of scenes is what brought my score up. This set of scenes is fantastic story writing and fantastic character dialogue. Because we're also getting pieces for people who don't necessarily know Frank Castle into a view who Castle is and how his mental is, psyche is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing it while not talking about it.
Yeah.
We're able to, through good writing and good acting, show like how far lost at this point Castle is. Because even when referring to the casing being marked the Punisher logo, Castle says straightforward that it's just some wannabe fans or something like that. That is the line he uses, and like that's great. It's acknowledging that Castle knows the Punisher cult exists. He doesn't care. It doesn't involve him. It doesn't affect him. It's some punk cops that want to go do something, as he put it. I think if this scene wasn't in this episode, this would be a washout episode for me.
So, this was part of the reshoots.
It feels like it.
Because this episode is kind of all over the place.
Yes.
Because of the reshoots. And like you can even see earlier on in when he finds the bullet casing, it doesn't have like the logo etched in. But like when you get the close-up shot inside the Punisher's compound, it is.
Yeah.
Which is like a clear indicator that this was part of the reshoots.
Yeah. Yeah. This episode feels weak until we get to the set of scenes.
Yeah.
Which again makes sense that this is part of the reshoot. This is part of the update when they took it. Because like just to be honest with you, if this was without this set of scenes, if this was episode 1, I would have lost interest in the show.
Yeah.
And again, that's what they said, is they had to go back and restart the running of the show and start us running, which this leads up and makes more sense of this. I think this was episode 1 initially.
It could have been, yeah.
And so I think we can clearly see where the writing definitely has changed. And you're putting me in a spot. I'm trying to figure out how the best way to word this. I don't feel good, so I'm going to mess this up. We're not a political channel. We do not talk politics. We do not discuss politics. We do not share political views. We are just going to discuss pieces of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that has happened and such. Okay? I feel like, based on what you took out of the heavy scenes and the dialogue of that, was written more around world events had happened. And that, when taking that, because I didn't even piece together that this was a part of the reshoots in this episode.
Yeah.
If we take that into consideration, I don't know this is fact. I don't know this is truth. I just know where the world was a couple years ago. it feels like that would have been written in that retrospect. Make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but like their conversation here is echoing the same message, though.
What do you mean?
As in, like, the system is broken, it needs to be restructured.
Yes. It's
I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
You are. And I'm trying to be careful. Again, we play with the line, but we never cross the line because we never want to go ahead and be mean offensive to anybody. We're never trying to be mean or offensive to anybody. We just try to go ahead and talk about our point of views. Be it right or wrong, that's your choice to have. Can we move past it?
Yeah.
I don't know a safe way to word it, and that is our way of going ahead and dealing with that situation.
I mean, like kudos to Marvel for finally having the balls to say stuff, though.
Agreed.
Because, like, this is, like, hard, thought-provoking stuff, in my opinion.
Agreed. It makes me wonder when this episode was written.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah.
As Murdock's side of the episode explores the flawed nature of the criminal justice system from multiple angles, Fisk's plotline highlights issues stemming from the mayor's office and the city government. Fisk brings his team to Red Hook to present his master plan to transform its port into a bustling new district, and he seeks to hold a press conference about it immediately. However, his veteran advisor, Sheila, brings him back down to earth. She reminds her boss that there are protocols in place for such a drastic initiative to even become a possibility, and there's all sorts of red tape in their path that needs to be handled before they can consider making a public announcement. After Fisk relents and agrees to go through the proper channels, he spends the rest of his day dealing with the performative nature of his new civic duties. He is forced to sit through multiple renditions of We Built This City, including from a rough children's choir at a middle school, and these scenes are about as funny as anything we've ever seen Vincent D'Onofrio's as Fisk.
Total lie. These are painful.
No, that's why it's funny, because he's just sitting there. He's just sitting there, George Bush reading a story style in a classroom. They gave him like the tiniest chair possible also to make him look even bigger. And like, and they're just singing to him for like what, 2 minutes straight, right? I mean, like there is like an actual like story relevant conversation happening that you're focused on, but they're just singing to him in the background, and he's just sitting there, and he's just like not even smiling through all of it. It's so funny to me. Quote, children have such talent, he stated stiffly at the conclusion of the kids' performance, giving them a standing ovation while simultaneously attempting to escape the room before they begin their second song. With zero warmth whatsoever, he goes on to tell the kids, as they say, the city never sleeps, while he puts on his coat to walk out the door. So then I'm going a little bit off script because they pull specific things out of place to like flow their synopsis better. But like there's a specific line that I thought was hilarious. So there's a news that comes out that someone in his office leaked to the media that Fisk and his team would be meeting with a tech company about their new ideas for recycling in the city that could decrease garbage output and work around existing union contracts. We saw earlier in the episode Fisk's young protege Daniel, who drunkenly bragged about upcoming meeting while clubbing with journalist BB Urich. And they show him on his way inside to a building. They don't tell you what the building is yet, and they show him, and he's going, I want an all-staff meeting now. where am I? And he's just in the middle of this building and he doesn't know where he is and he's just screaming at all of his employees. And I think that's so funny.
You're peeking a bit, but yes, that again, once we got to the Frank Castle set of scenes, this episode starts to really like pull back on like the writing's all of a sudden gets really good. Like, this scene is hilarious. It is so well set up. And it's fantastic.
And he's all mad, and they take him upstairs to go to this Latvian conference or whatever for Latvian Culture Day. And they have a choir there that starts singing "We Built This City" in Latvian. And he just has this look on his face of like total care. And I think it's the funniest thing that they've done with this character. Anyway, Born Again comically ties its transition between the performance at the Latvian Culture Center to Fisk's violent tantrum back at his office. In a tense moment meeting with his staff, he promises to find a leak. However, Daniel confesses on the spot and somehow manages to win back Fisk's trust and keep his job in private soon after. Although Fisk's day at work provides Born Again with some rare moments of levity, the episode weaves in another segment from the BB report to draw parallels between the city's wider garbage issue on the show and one that New York City faces in real life. Quote, Mayor Fisk, you never see him, a woman tells BB in an interview. Every week it seems like he's involved in a new scandal. I mean, look what just happened with the garbage, and look at all the garbage on the street, you know? How can we trust a guy like that who makes all of these promises to actually have our back? Oh, okay. Apparently that's supposed to be like a jab at Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York.
Yes.
This is coming from the Ringer. That's their opinion, not our own.
Yes.
I know nothing about New York or New York's mayor.
Never been there.
All I know is that's where Spider-Man's from and the pizza's pretty good, supposedly. That's all I know.
When that jab that section came out, I'm like, that's about politics. This is a political episode.
Oh yeah.
This is a
the BB report vignettes may be a bit heavy-handed at times, but they help make New York City a character of its own in the series, speaking through the voices of its residents. Towards the end of the episode, Born Again underscores the similarities of Murdock and Fisk's current experiences, providing a glimpse of their secret escapes into their past lives. As Heather sleeps in Murdock's appointment, he sneaks away to his roof, where he stores all of his Daredevil equipment. He breaks out his weapons to train, and there's a prevailing sense that this isn't the first time he's done this. Meanwhile, and this is like going back and forth shot for shot, you see like a shot of Murdock ascending to the roof, and then a shot of Fisk walking downstairs, and like it's pretty. It's pretty. It's good
storytelling.
It's good storytelling with camera work.
It's showing that Misk and Matt are very much mirroring each other at the moment.
Meanwhile, Fisk has something of a hideout of his own where he keeps the iconic blood-stained white painting from the original Daredevil series, along with a special guest, Adam, the man Vanessa had an affair with after Fisk abruptly left her. In the series premiere, Fisk promised his wife that he wouldn't kill Adam. And while technically he hasn't yet, during another couples therapy session with Heather earlier in the episode, Fisk claimed that he didn't know where Adam was, and here he is, trapped in a cage by Fisk, begged to be freed as the mayor enjoys one of his classic, fanciful, solo dining experiences in front of him. Touching on that real quick. Go on. Nah, because I think you're telling the same thing I am.
Which is also interesting about this is we've only seen up to this point in Fisk for this new version of Fisk, the whole season, him eating very delicate, very clean, very nice meals.
And very like lean, smaller portions.
And it takes a good long shot on his plate full of pasta and sausage.
Yeah.
Like it's a very hearty, very meaty meal.
In front of somebody who's starving in a cage.
Yeah.
Oh.
This last shot is pretty messed up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fantastic.
It's real good.
like for
Sic
a villain
Semper.
shot, this is the shot I would expect.
Yes. Sic Semper Systema concludes by teasing the show's upcoming villain, a disturbed street artist who wears a creepy mask and goes by the name Muse. And it ends with him pulling or carrying a victim into his lair. Everybody has secret lairs apparently in New York. Where we see some of his drawings, his paintings, and other victims strung up by hooks. Muse in the comics is a serial killer that is also a famous artist under Muse, who uses his victims' blood in his paintings. Also, lore-wise, Muse is the one going around and painting all the murals that you're seeing around New York in the BB Uric sections, the BB report sections. And that's where the synopsis ends. George?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, sorry. This is a quote, okay?
Yep.
Not from the episode. Muse, Earth 616.
Yep.
There's this mystique about art, a shared fiction, if you will. An artist presents a piece to the world in its finished form and pretends that it simply appeared that way, effortlessly birthed from his genius. Both artist and audience prefer to believe that's the truth. It's nice to think that the really good creators have some direct connection to the divine, but it's a lie. In reality, it's hours and hours of missteps, frustration, and bad ideas that get sliced away to reveal some kind of truth. It's never easy. In fact, it's agony. I'm surprised. I was surprised when we saw Muse.
You didn't know Muse was in this going into it? Oh, okay.
I did not like Muse is a bigger villain for Matt, and so it makes sense. Again, we have Fisk, and we're touching in some of these other side stories. I figured Muse was off the table for Marvel. Muse is a very dark villain.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we're going there. Like, we're not showing it yet, but we just now got to his lair. We're going there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we're gonna see because you get that quick glimpse of the body strung up behind him. Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, that makes me wonder, since we know this episode was reshot, at least sections of it were, it makes me wonder if this was part of the reshoots or was this not.
I believe Muse was part of the original.
Okay.
Yeah.
That just surprises me.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the team that's doing the really good writing, I could see them bringing it in because we've already seen they don't mind being a little more on edge for Marvel. And Muse, you need to be on edge. Muse is one of the villains in the Daredevil comics. You either love him or you hate him because he's so over the top extreme. There's hardly anybody that's like, he's a fine villain. It's like, no, he's either way over the top for Daredevil or he's, fantastic. We need more gore and blood and such.
All right. Your score.
What? Give me your review of the episode. I kind of did my review through the episode.
Well, so did I. There was a lot of thought-provoking dialogue in this. No action like last week.
Yeah.
Weird back-to-back having that, but I kind of. I wouldn't say I like it. It flows differently.
It flows differently.
Yeah. I don't mind. I would give this episode, I think, a 4.
Okay. Before I give mine, okay.
Yep.
I did pull up from Rotten Tomatoes this episode.
Okay.
particularly.
Okay.
According to Rotten Tomatoes, it's 100% tomato meter. That's not actually correct and accurate when I actually opened up the reviews and looked at it. IGN Movies. This is Josh Rosen of IGN Movies. Gave it a 7 out of 10. Daredevil's extended absence for almost 4 episodes has become a point of frustration, but at least this episode is filled with compelling motivation and multiple fronts for Murdock to finally suit up again. This is the IndieWire top critic. They gave it a score of a B+. Again, I hate how Rotten Tomatoes is. There should be a standardized scoring system. It's been so satisfying watching all these actors reprise their roles in the reboot, but Barthaniel's Punisher is and always has been my knockout. The next score from AV Club, and we'll do one more after this one, gave it a B-. While it's somewhat disheartening to see this week's episode not even attempt to surpass or even match last week's dramatic high point, there's just enough here to sink our teeth into. And then the last one from New York Magazine /Vulture is a 3 out of 5. Episode 4 is all about reminding Matt of how unfixable the system is if it wasn't already clear from Hector's death last week. Actually, we'll do one more. Process Media, 6 Semper Sistera is a welcome return to basics for the fledgling superhero reboot. An encouraging sign Born Again heavy rewrites are beginning to bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that pretty much, again, it said 100%. This episode's not 100%.
I wouldn't say that, no.
And that's where these reviews are all coming in, that this week is definitely a letdown compared to last week. It's still solid.
It's still good. Here.
Because of the Frank Castle, before the Frank Castle scenes, this episode is a 3. This episode is forgettable on that point. Frankly enough, I needed you to give me the synopsis of that first section because I'd forgotten it, and I watched it right before we started this.
Yeah.
So 2 hours ago. Because of Frank's scene and because of the scenes following it and how well the storytelling is, and it's about the halfway point, so it almost makes you wonder if legitimately
next week is technically the halfway point.
No, I mean the episode.
Oh, okay.
So I'm almost wondering if originally they were thinking maybe half-hour episodes, and to fill out the episodes is why they are now an hour to fix the writing, because it does feel like the second half of this episode is a fully different pace than the first half. Even again, the slower scenes where, yeah, we are just in the room with the Punisher and they're just yelling at each other. That is a slow scene. We sit on shots for so long, but they're so fast of slow scenes.
And and the dialogue really, really carries those scenes. And like something that the synopsis didn't really touch into is you did was we get a lot of where the Punisher's current psyche is at. And he brings up his son and how he sees his son. And there's just like a moment of very visual storytelling at the end when Murdock leaves, where Frank begins to break down and he turns away as if he can see his son next to Murdock as he's leaving, telling him to go help him. Yep. And he turns away and he starts to break down. And it's beautiful. And John Bernthal it constantly reminds me that he is the perfect pick for the Punisher.
Absolutely. But for retrospect of how this pacing is kind of weird this episode, the scene with Fisk sitting there at the children's school, it is a slow scene. It is a painful scene to watch because you are as uncomfortable as Fisk is. It is funny, as Justin put it, but the scene still keeps feeling like it's moving because the camera keeps moving.
The camera's moving, and it takes you to a side dialogue that is extremely important for the next scene. So
Yes.
it's actively developing your next scene and moving the plot along while slugging behind with the current scene. And it's just really good storytelling, in
But
my opinion.
in the same exact episode, when we go back to, for instance, the scene where he's talking to the guy that stole the caramel corn, that scene is just slow because there really isn't any camera movement. There's nothing much going on. We are focused on the gentleman talking, but even this other scene where Matt leaves and goes and tries to wheel and deal, trying to get a better sentence, these scenes are not creative. They're just, we found a tripod in the corner. We're just going to set it here. Just tell your lines to each other and we'll move to the next scene. And you're like, okay, like, even go back and watch Criminal Minds. Those court scenes alone, there's camera movement continuously because they understand if you're an audience member trying to watch, like us having a discussion straight to a camera is one thing.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting down watching a movie and the movie is shot in this one frame and we're just going to sit here and everything's just going to take place in this one frame, I'm going to get bored of what I'm looking at. The theater is the only exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Because you know you're going to watch a direct look at it, but that's why so many of the background props continuously move. Like even Newsies. I don't know if anybody has ever seen Newsies on Broadway. It is fantastic. It's just as good as the movie. But all their main props is just some scaffolding straight up. However, the scaffolding will change positions on the stage to still give movement and life to the stage and to the performers.
Yes.
And I think that's really what killed this first section of the episode.
I do think there is a reshoot scene in the first half of the episode, though, with the cop. I don't remember his name right now.
I think
so.
But
I think that's a reshoot scene because of how it gets with its camera. And
the pacing of that shot, the action of that shot, the dialogue, all do not feel like the rest of the scenes around it.
Yeah.
That is, to me, clearly it's clearly a shot out of order, is how I'll word it.
Yeah.
Because you're listening to the way they're talking and such, and like we just heard Matt, and straightforward, when Matt is trying to, wheel and deal for a better sentence, even the tone of his voice is completely different in that part, and when he's talking to his client compared to when he's talking to the officer.
Officer Powell?
Officer Powell.
I think that's right.
I think so. Like when he's talking to his client, he's kind of more in this upper area, more season 1 Matt Murdock, where he's a little bit younger and seems a little bit more fresh. And then we get this when he's talking to his client, he's still kind of up here in this little higher octave area. And then I'm talking to Officer Powell and we're down here. I'm like even if you are trying to portray the same person, your voice is shifting way too much as a person in these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
He's going back as soon as he's, I'm Officer Powell, how are you? And okay, well, good thing is I got you. And you're like, that's a little jarring. Like, what are you doing? Which makes me also wonder, because we never knew necessarily what the original writing for Daredevil was going to be, except for that it was going to be more of a restart.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if we were supposed to be going back realistically to Matt's early days, because he's really in this episode looking more, his court scenes looks more like a public defender.
Yeah.
Instead of him owning his own private practice. Like, why are you taking this case if you don't want it? Like, what is going on in this episode? And so that, now that you've made the comment that this is a reshoot, I can see it now that I'm thinking logically about it too.
It makes me also wonder, like, were the first 3 episodes all technically reshoot? All of them. And like the whole White Tiger storyline and everything reshoot. Because like that first introduction scene where he's in the morgue is also really good. And it feels like a reshoot comparatively.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
I'm thinking the White Tiger arc was not something, because it also would not make sense for the White Tiger arc to have happened if this was the restart of Daredevil.
Exactly, because then he wouldn't be fighting for vigilantes.
Well, because vigilantes aren't around yet. Remember, Daredevil in the Daredevil universe is the first vigilante in the area.
Okay, so I found something. This is coming from a Reddit user discussing some interesting keynotes from an interview with the director on episode 4. So this episode is originally shot as a one cut, like Birdman the film, before the overhaul. One residual shot of this is the transition between Daniel leaving the bar and Leroy's introduction. The scenarios are supposed to be seamless transition between each one. So if you remember that, which you probably don't, when they walk out of the bar,
yes,
the camera goes through like a taxi, and it ends on Leroy.
Yes,
in the street.
Yes.
Oh wow. Frank's introduction was originally shot for episode 7, but was retooled into this episode, which tells me that we weren't going to see Daredevil until episode 8.
Yeah.
That might be part of the reason why they did reshoot.
Because again, especially if a lot of the writing was more like this episode was, they would never have made it to episode 8.
Yeah, and like the way that he's acting in that scene is a lot like asking permission. It's a lot of he's not Daredevil yet.
Yeah.
Which tells me we would not have seen Daredevil until episode 8. Jesus Christ. They shot a version of the scene with the White Tiger's amulet shining in the evidence room. So if you know anything about White Tiger, whenever he uses his White Tiger powers, the amulet's eyes glow because his power comes from the amulet.
Yeah.
And then judging from the fact that this episode is credited with writer David Feige and Jesse Wigtow, and according to WGA means the second writer rewrites the script of the first one. It suggests that the episode is reworked to a very large extent compared to the previous two, and the entire White Tiger's murder plotline could very much not exist in the original cut. And the original cut seems to be entirely focused on Matt dealing with Leroy's case and Fisk dealing with the mayor office drama.
Yeah, that's a weak plot then, and
yeah,
what it was originally set as, which makes sense why they reshoot. So, going back to numbers, like you were asking, you were at a 4. You actually came in where I came in at. I came in at a 4.
Yeah.
Again, it was a 3. The Punisher scenes, and from that point on, really brought it up, which now makes sense now that we're talking about all this. Especially for the fact that apparently these scenes weren't supposed to be till episode 7, which is crazy. How do you have a show called Daredevil, but apparently not a plan to show him till episode 8 of your show?
Yeah.
Like, where's the logic? Please explain.
I would like to see the original shoot of this to see how they would do it as a one-shot, though. Because, like, City Hall and the courthouse are probably on opposite sides of the city.
I don't think the whole episode was a one-shot. I think the opening was supposed to be a full one-shot.
No, they said the entire episode was originally shot as a one-shot.
God, that'd be horrible.
That'd be a pain, dude.
That would be awful.
Yeah.
This episode would be garbage. Any guess where we are on our average at this point? This episode did bring us down.
So last week we were at like 8.6, I believe. So we're probably at like 8.3.
We were at last week a 9.16.
A 9 point what?
16.
Okay, so then we're at like a 8.6.
Average of 8.875.
Yeah.
So still solid. This episode's a trek to get through. Hopefully we go back to more 1, 2, and 3 next week. Because at this point, I'm not like I'm still excited to watch next week, but I'm not on the high of last week where I was just like, I need this episode now. Like, it can come when it comes. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho.
Next week is a double episode week.
It is.
5 and 6 are next week.
We should be back with regular Tuesday talks or not Tuesday talks. That's a very old show.
Wow.
Show in the longest time.
Oh, we did like 2 episodes of that.
The Pop Culture Jungle should be back next Tuesday. The double feature review will be on Wednesday.
Probably at 6 again to allow time for you.
Yeah. Snow White review. It looks like I might be doing that on my own. If so, that will be Saturday. If not, it will be a video that goes up. You'll see what if you follow the channel. Sorry. Sunday, I'll be at Disney, and I'll be filming Food and Wine Festival.
Oh.
So that video should be live Monday or Tuesday, and then next weekend, because we got to keep running.
Yeah, apparently.
I'll be on a cruise ship, and then that following Monday, and then legitimately the end of the weekend on Monday, Justin and I are going to be at Disney for Star Wars Seasons of the Force.
I need to request that day.
You said this last week.
Yep.
And as long as Justin gets the time off, we might be going and building a lightsaber.
Oh, hell.
Go see what the new builds are. But you have to follow the channel to know all that. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Until next time. See you later.
Bye.